Greg Kelly Show.
Well, this is me. If only people would do their jobs. Wow, really something to watch that character shooting off his mouth about international law, philosophy, Maduro, Netanyahu. City is falling apart. The city is falling apart. And the boy mayor has something to say about international law and genocide and false allegations of war crimes. Gosh, what Netanyahu and all of Israel have gone through just for defending themselves from genocide. Israel, in many ways, was kind of founded as a refuge from genocide. They were the victims of genocide. Genocide has been waged against them for millennia. What's the plural of 1,000 years? I think it's millennia. And to see this fake aggrieved, I don't know if you saw what I did, but I think this guy picked up a lot of the nasty traits of his home country, Uganda. All right, Uganda's not a nice place, okay? Talk about genocide city. Uganda. Idi Amin, remember him, the cannibal? Fascinating movie about him. Actually, better than the movies or the documentaries. Idi Amin, the raid on Entebbe. He was a bit of a cannibal, they said. You know, some of it was hype. Some of it was actually hype from him. But, bad dude. It's illegal to be gay in Uganda. Yet, what's his name? Mamdani is quite proud of that. I'm going back to Uganda. I'm visiting family and friends for a celebration with Rama. With Rama. You know what? I wonder what I would do if I found out that my wife was liking terrorist attacks on social media. She wouldn't be my wife. I mean, that's just impossible. But let's pretend it wasn't impossible. What would I do? How would I feel? This guy feels the same way. October 7th was a good thing. And the idea that he gave the terrorists the address to attack. With that fake story, he gave motivation. Just do me a favor. Focus on the snow when it's here. Get ready for the snowstorm. You screwed up the last one. The snow, the sewers, the roads, the potholes. When did mayors become these, authorities on everything? Fake news, offers them questions, no follow-up, no, how do you feel about Netanyahu? Well, I think he's a war criminal. How do you feel about the trash heap on 120th Street? What the freaking hell? You know what I mean? This is the mayor. This is Koch. This is Beam. Beam. Was he weighing in on all these kinds of things all over the place? Here is Mamdani giving people the address that he wants the terrorists to hit. I think this is very creepy. When you look at what the hell happened over there, why in the world would he talk about anything else other than the basic prosaic things that you got to do to be the mayor? Because it's no fun. It's no fun. It's hard work. You're not guaranteed success. If you dabble in everything and you virtue signal to your friends, that's fun. You get a big boost. A big boost on social media. Nothing like seeing your comments go viral. Well, maybe this should go viral. Cut 2, please. Cut 2.
ICE operates here in New York, in our courthouses, our workplaces. They skulk at 26 Federal Plaza, the same building where I waited in fear as my father had his citizenship interview. We are standing in front of Federal Plaza, the very site where New Yorkers are being stolen, whether from their families, their friends, or from the city that they call home. The city where I have gone on hunger strike just outside these gates. Sat claustrophobic on a stalled N train just after Atlantic Avenue and waited in quiet terror for my father to emerge from 26 Federal Plaza. And it's at 26 Federal Plaza that I've seen what used to be moments when New Yorkers would be getting their citizenship turn into moments of tragedy.
Really, like it's a black ops dark site. They're waterboarding people inside 26 Federal Plaza. Well, if you listen to him, I can understand what people would think. And not even just like, lunatics. This is the justification. This is kind of like the rhetoric about the election in 2020. right? You know, if you raise questions about its legitimacy, somehow you were a threat to democracy. If you peacefully and patriotically protested on January 6th, you were an insurrectionist, right? This is real. It's worse, and it's getting worse. I don't know. Things are heating up in Iran. Things are really heating up in Iran, and when things heat up in Iran, they could heat up back at home. Now, a couple of things. I have no problem whatsoever with the campaign. I actually think it's necessary, warranted. Boots on the ground. People are afraid of boots on the ground. I had to look it up. Boots on the ground. President Trump, the midterms will be over. His presidency, they will impeach him if there are boots on the ground. Boots on the ground. I don't know when they came up with this phrase, boots on the ground, but it basically means, ground troops. Putting ground troops. We have boots on the ground everywhere Americans go, right? We have boots on the ground. Boots on the ground. But it's if they're in a certain country, that's called boots on the ground. Well, I looked it up. Every president, let's see here. FDR ordered boots on the ground, ordered American troops onto foreign land. So did Truman, American troops onto foreign land. So did Eisenhower, American troops onto foreign land. Let me double check Eisenhower. Was the Korean War over by the time Eisenhower showed up? It may have been. Kennedy ordered troops onto foreign land. Johnson ordered troops onto foreign land. Nixon ordered troops onto foreign land. Gerald Ford ordered troops onto foreign land. Jimmy Carter, troops onto foreign land. Ronald Reagan, troops onto foreign land. George H.W. Bush, a couple of 100,000 troops onto foreign land. Bill Clinton, Bosnia, remember that? Troops onto foreign land. George W. Bush, troops onto foreign land. Obama, troops onto foreign land. Biden, troops onto foreign land. Not Trump. Not Trump. Of all the presidents, he is the one president who has not ordered boots on the ground. Isn't that interesting? 4 years during his first term. Now we are 2 years into the second term. And if it happens, oh my God, it'll be cataclysmic. No, actually it won't. We have a military. We are a superpower. We can fight 2 wars at the same time. We could fight 2. And this is not a full-on war. This is not total war. This is not that intense. Now, it's an air war primarily, right? It is an air war. Will there be boots on the ground? I don't know. If it happens, I think we can manage it. Right now, it's a blockade. And the Strait of Hormuz, however, we could be very close to a deal. I listen carefully to what people are talking about. People are not talking about this war. I know what it's like when people are talking about a war and not talking about a war, and they ain't talking about this. The only time everybody was really talking about a war in my lifetime was the invasion of Iraq in March and April of 2003. That was hot. Everybody was talking about that, watching the TV 24/7. Everybody was talking about our troops in the ground when we got bin Laden. And for about 20 minutes, everybody was talking about when we got out of Afghanistan in such a disgrace. Other than that, people are content to go about their business, get coffee at Starbucks, go to Costco, watch TV. It's just not that big a deal. And, to put this in perspective, we have less than 20 troops dead. And I hate that. But it is a manageable number. It's a manageable number, all right? So now, Tom Cotton, one of the smartest guys in the United States Senate, and I think it was pretty, he's, not everybody likes him. I keep hearing, well, he's a neocon. I don't see that. I don't see any sign of that. He's off the charts brilliant. He has military experience. I mean, real military experience. He's not one of these guys who got his ticket punched. He's no Hegseth, right? And I know Hegseth had a few nice moments yesterday, but he had to go ballistic when he couldn't handle the substance of the questions. And Hegseth, I told you guys that he was digging himself a big hole when he was talking trash about Iran in the early stages of the war. I told you his big mouth was going to get himself into trouble. I don't think President Trump was impressed. I saw those things, But when you resort to accusing a senator of Trump derangement syndrome, now some of them actually warranted serious, some of these guys are actually serious people. Senator Reid is a serious person, a Vietnam veteran himself. You can't write him off as a Trump derangement syndrome individual. But I want to fast forward. So they had a big argument about the budget. I don't think Pete was good on the substance. He said way too much early on. He was way too confident. And he taunted the enemy. You don't taunt the enemy. It may seem kind of cool if you're watching TV, at a bar or with your friends, or, ooh, look at that little segment on TV. He really owned that person. He owned that person. Yeah, that was a nice clip. That was a nice 30-second clip. But it was a 3-hour hearing. That's a big meeting. You want to play for the cameras? Okay. You want to play for social media? Okay, but let's really talk about this stuff. And I thought he was inadequate, as he usually is. Yeah, just look at that guy. He thinks he's Julius Caesar. He's got a problem. Tom Cotton, on the other hand, I totally trust him. I trust him implicitly, explicitly. The guy is on it. Republican of Arkansas, United States Senator, possibly a future president of the United States. Tom Cotton on the Fox and Friends with our friend Brian Kilmeade. Hit it, please.
Yeah, Brian, as the president has said, these people were never serious about negotiating. They're revolutionary fanatics. Secretary Hegseth said the same thing yesterday. That's been proven clear. We're right to be retaliating for Iran's strikes against shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, but because these fanatics are not serious about negotiations, I think the time has come to finish our military operations, to hit them much harder, as the president said, not just along the southern coast next to the strait, but to take out as much more of their missile and their drone programs and the manufacturing that backs those up as possible. What Secretary Rubio said is right. This has always been about preventing them from getting a nuclear weapon. We've set back that nuclear program by years, but we can't allow them to continue to have this shield of thousands of drones and missiles, which might protect a future nuclear program after the Trump administration. So the president is right. These fanatics are not serious about negotiating. It's time to finish our military operations, keep the strait open, and to keep the blockade in place.
So you say there's a military way that we can use the Oman side of the strait, and we should, even though there'll always be a little bit of a threat, we have to hit it harder to open that up and get the oil and gas through.
Yeah, that's right, Brian. The Strait of Hormuz was not our objective when this started. Our objective has always been their nuclear weapons program, as well as the conventional missiles and drones they used to shield that program. But the revolutionary fanatics in Tehran wanted to close the strait. Well, we can make it our objective, and we can keep it open through the southern end. Of course, Iran, because of geography, will be able to harass shipping to some degree. But in May and June, even before the Memorandum of Understanding, we were helping to get millions of barrels of oil out every single day, as the president has acknowledged. We can do that in concert with our Arab friends in the Persian Gulf region. We can make sure that we keep the price of gas and diesel down for Arkansans and all Americans, while also severely degrading what's left of Iran's military. I think that's the course of action right now that we need to take.
And you want to pick up the intensity, not level it off. You mean intensify. Is that correct? The number of strikes?
I think that's where we are. I think that's where we are right now. These fanatics have made clear they don't want to negotiate. The talks are a farce that are just designed to string us along. We need to finish our military operational plans, which will deal an even more severe blow to their conventional missile and drone forces.
All right. You see, he's got the experience, and he's serious. Just because he said what he said there, I don't think not everybody is crazy. People, I know this for a fact. People on our side are not crazy about the wild kind of presence of Hegseth during these things. He reverts to cable news at night, and we're looking for more. We need more from that out of the Secretary of Defense in a time of war. Now, there's something else here. Why we may need boots on the ground. It's considered a truism in the military for a long time now that you can't get what you want from bombing alone. You got to put troops on the ground at some point. Now, I think there are a lot of caveats to that. They like to say a lot of caveats. There are exceptions. Air power has gotten a lot more precise and a lot more lethal. But General Kane said basically you can only bomb so much your way out of a problem, and then you got to put some of those boots on the ground, and we may be getting there very soon. We'll be right back.
The Greg Kelly Show.
Well, Here we are. I can't tell you how much I respect this Senator Kennedy, John Kennedy from Louisiana. He's folksy, but he's smart as hell. And he's not going to get spun by anyone, whether it's the left, whether it's the right, and sometimes our guys do it. So he's sitting there, and he's watching Kane and Hegseth. Now, the whole thing about military might has to be augmented by ground troops. You can't just do it with air power. My dad knew this from Vietnam. You just you bomb, and guess what happens after you bomb? The enemy comes out of their holes, and they keep fighting. They keep fighting. Now, I have a hard time believing that with our the bunker busters and the munition precision and all that stuff that maybe that mantra is obsolete, but who knows? Anyway, here's John Kennedy, Republican of Louisiana. This is important. And, I love it when we make these things breathe, when we find these clips and you let them breathe. All the time on social, most of it is like 20 seconds. Ooh, wow, somebody insulted somebody. Now, this is substantive and it really gives you an idea, a picture. All right? Now, we got guys over there and they're dying, and I know it isn't that many. And we want to keep it low, but this is serious business. There's going to be a dignified transfer, they call it, at Dover Air Force sometime today, Dover Air Force Base. We know that Hegseth and the president will treat this with utmost respect. Unlike Biden, remember he checked his watch, he was yawning. Guy was yawning, had better places to be, and then told all the families, you don't know what it's like to grieve. I lost my son, Bo. Disgusting. All right, let me hear a true statesman, Senator Kennedy, with the top defense or war officials in America. Go ahead.
Will they put tolls on the strait?
I don't know, sir. That's a decision that's a hypothetical and will depend on what happens
It's not
in the
hypothetical.
future.
We got a blockade to stop them.
We do, sir. That's
General,
putting
I want you
economic
to look
pressure
me in
on
the eye.
them.
I'm not asking you for. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I know your advice to the president is private, but this is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. Now, what happens if we come home and end the blockade to the world?
Sir, Iran has the potential to continue to be a threat, and we will need to prepare military
Will they
options to
toll
do
the
that.
strait?
Sir, that's a hypothetical question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, it's not hypothetical. We come home. It's not going to be hypothetical. You know that, General, and I do too. And I appreciate your discretion, but we're down to it. We need some hard answers and some straight talk. What will happen, Pete?
Senator, I would agree with the chairman, but the likely outcome is they would try to impose their will on the waterways in ways that the world would not like. Call it a toll, call it a fee, call it an exchange, call it control. They would do something that they would try to hold it at issue. Yes, sir.
Would they try to commence development again of a nuclear warhead?
Part of the reason President Trump had to have the courage to do what he did after Midnight Hammer is that they didn't give up their ambitions even though their nuclear sites had been obliterated. So this is a regime hell-bent on nuclear ambitions, and
Guys,
President Trump's been willing to go after it.
We need straight answers. Do we have the ability to destroy whatever is underneath Pickaxe Mountain?
Senator, a lot of our capabilities are classified, but if anybody in the world can reach anything on God's green earth, it's the United States military, the most powerful military in the world. It's all about options and trade-offs.
All right. I'm going to take a little extra time because others got it, Madam Chair. I won't abuse it. Secretary.
I can understand that thing about Pickaxe Mountain. It's tricky when you're a democracy. You got everybody in the world watching. You got our enemies watching. And you're talking about capabilities and can we get it? And it's, the worst system in the world except for all the others. You got the enemies glued. And they have these closed door sessions and the rest. That is interesting. It's fascinating. It's not easy. This is not easy, folks. And it's going to be tough tonight when they all come home. 3. Did you hear about the soldier who was from New York, beautiful woman from Queens? And I love those pictures of her, her in uniform. So much hope, so much excitement. Joining the military is an adventure, and I saw it all in her. And she's coming home. It's tough, really, really, really tough. However, folks, this is not a forever war. Stop wetting your pants. Stop wetting your pants, Britt Hume. Cut 7.
He promised to keep us out of endless wars or unsatisfactory wars, and now he's in one, and it's not at all clear how it's going to
end. Forever war. Yeah, Britt Hume. Very smart man. My understanding is he never did get over there to Iraq or Afghanistan as a journalist. It's kind of easy to do. Not that it would have made him an expert, but it was something to do. He certainly defended the hell out of that war, the Iraq war. He thought it was fine and dandy from his comfortable vantage point in rural Virginia. He saw no problem with anything. Oh, there goes Greg Kelly again telling us bad news stories from Iraq. One of these days you're going to wake up the wrong passenger, pal. Let's see here. Cut 8. A little bit of, kind of got really intense there and loud. Cut 8.
I would take issue with your characterization that we started this war. Iran started this war 47 years ago, and they've killed thousands of Americans, including our brothers on the battlefield in Iraq. Iran has been targeting us for a long time.
Which is true. Was it obliterated or wasn't it? What's the status?
The nuclear sites under Midnight Hammer were obliterated, but Iranians foolishly continued to attempt to pursue nuclear capabilities, which is why we destroyed their defense industrial base and so many of the other capabilities to ensure they can't get to a nuclear weapon. So we're staying laser focused on the objective, and you're trying to make campaign commercials.
No, we're
and
not.
That's fine.
We have political leadership. You don't have a strategy. You don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. The men and women are going to be able to do it, but they need to have leadership. When will you show leadership? When will you show leadership?
Why don't you show some leadership and stand up to your fellow Democrats who won't fund the troops, who stand and play partisan politics while you don't give us the money? You want to stand up here and talk about the troops? You won't show any political courage to actually fund our department because you have Trump derangement syndrome and can't actually commit to anything meaningful. So I put this on you, Senator.
All right. Advantage Pete, but I'm kind of looking for more at this point. To resort to that kind of stuff is, there are serious questions. I think that they deserve answers. Now, I think the answers are pretty straightforward. Look, we have already eliminated the nuclear. We can say that. We can maintain that. As far as this Pickaxe Mountain goes, my understanding is we may not be able to get to the bottom of it, but we have it under surveillance. We have the damn thing under total and complete surveillance, and if they try to move in on it and take the enriched uranium or nuclear dust or whatever you want to call it, all we's got to do is keep an eye on it, and the moment they move on it, boom, we can start hitting them. We can hit them from space. We can hit them from the sea. We can hit them from Missouri. We can take those beautiful B-2 bombers off from Missouri, fly all the way across the world, drop those bombs, and those guys will be back in time home for whatever. It's a 24 or 36-hour mission. They must be basket cases by the time they get off the plane. I think that's the longest mission. Well, it's not the longest time an airplane has ever been aloft. The longest time an airplane has ever been aloft? An airplane in the air, something like 2 months. 2 months, a propeller plane. 2 guys in a little Cessna, they figured out a way to get fuel. They would fly low, and there was a fuel truck, and they would fuel as they flew down the runway. And they just to see if anybody could, stay in the air for a couple of months. And these guys did it all the way back in the 1950s for like 2 months. Pretty wild. And that record has not been broken. It's a dangerous record to break. The hardest part is getting the fuel, getting all that gasoline and that kind of stuff. Let's see. Has anybody hired a good lawyer in their life? I've hired 1 or 2, but boy, oh boy, these guys are fraidy cats. So many of them are fraidy cats, always worried about what some corporation is going to say or think, or some letter a Democrat is going to write. I still have to figure out a way, and I need help. If you're a lawyer, If you're a lawyer, hopefully a rich lawyer, because a lot of the lawyers I know, they got to work every day. And that's fine, but they can't do what they call pro bono work. And I don't know. I just want to get Rudy Giuliani his law license back. Rudy Giuliani and Professor Epstein. No, not Epstein. Eastman from California. Great lawyers. All they did was advocate vociferously for their client, the President of the United States. They didn't steal from anybody. They didn't commit a crime. And they both lost their law license. And nobody seems to give a damn. And all those jerk lawyers who are still dining out, telling stories about their glory days, going after the mob. I'm talking about you, Savarese. I'm talking about you, Chertoff, Michael Chertoff, and your bros. Oh, the tough guys going after the mob with Rudy. Oh, Rudy drinks, No, he doesn't. That's a lie. Rudy has never been better. And thank God he's still with us. All right, something else we wanted to do here. I think everyone should take a moment. We're going to listen to one Democrat. And I happen to know that she is, well, like a lot of Democrats, she's got a screw loose. She also has a smidgen of integrity. She does. And a lot of people I respect have asked me, did you watch that? No, I didn't watch that. I can't watch a 3-hour hearing. Well, that's part of the problem. Who can? This is Senator Patty Murray. She is a Democrat. She is from Washington. And she has some serious questions. And from what I'm told, she's a serious person. But if I find out she went to a drag time story hour for kids, the deal is off. Go ahead, please, with Patty Murray.
Your department received $150 billion last year in the Republicans' Big Beautiful Bill. It also received a record $839 billion for fiscal year 2026, more money than you asked for last year. Combined, that is a $1 trillion budget for the year. And as I already mentioned, your department has yet to spend half of the reconciliation funds. And despite that, you are here today asking for tens of billions of dollars more for things that you've already asked for in your FY27 request or that have nothing to do with Iran. This administration has tried to sell this as an emergency request, but it may be better understood as an attempt to skirt the normal appropriations process. Here are just a few of the things requested in this Iran supplemental. $800 million for the National Guard to patrol D.C. even longer. Over $1 billion for the Army to patrol the southern border, which is DHS's job. $900 million to support the administration's illegal boat strikes in the Caribbean. Over $18 billion for munitions, which you've already requested in your FY27 budget request, and $1.7 billion to pay for your decision to recruit more people than the services need, which was not contemplated by the FY26 funding bill Congress recently passed. Now, you've already submitted a reprogramming request on this that our subcommittee is considering now, which really underscores the point I made in my opening remarks that the problem is not a lack of money, but poor planning. So I'll be blunt. The truth is your request does not make a lot of sense. So let me ask you a simple question. Why exactly are billions of dollars more for the National Guard and this administration's illegal strikes in the Caribbean urgently needed for the Iran war?
Well, Senator,
not illegal.
Of course,
not illegal.
Agree with your characterization, but why this kind of spending is needed is because of the gross negligence and neglect of the Biden administration inside.
Good
our
for you,
department.
Pete.
Ran it like a bureaucracy, abandoned our strength posture around the world, so we're having to reestablish deterrence. You mentioned the end strength numbers, and I will acknowledge that we are ahead of schedule on end strength in recruiting. 8,000 in the Navy, 6,000 in the Army, 4,000 in the Air Force. Because under President Trump, there's been record and historic over 30-year recruiting records inside our department since he won the election because the American people didn't want to sign up for what Joe Biden was providing our military.
Let me
and they
blunt.
want to sign up for what President Trump is doing in his leadership. And so those are good problems to have that we need to fund and a reflection of momentum. And this budget will allow us to continue the kind of momentum that gets us ahead.
My point is that a lot of this request does not feel like an emergency. And
Bit of a stalemate. Those things are kind of on the boring side. Hey, meanwhile, Illegal people, non-citizens registering to vote in New Jersey, and it's ho-hum. No, this is a major, major, major scandal. It's a window into stuff that's been going on all across the country. We're not going to let it go. You know what I love? These really kind of intrepid reporters on Capitol Hill. There's this kind of new thing. It helps with the Steadicam. They walk with the lawmakers as they go across the street. It's totally legal. I love that about America. You know, you see somebody on the street, you can go up and talk to them. It doesn't matter if you're a congressman or a senator. You don't get a special kind of bubble or anything like that. Questions can be posed. We can watch you squirm, and sometimes it's a very beautiful, funny thing to watch them squirm. And once in a blue moon, they'll have something of substance to say. The questions are fascinating. The answers are fascinating, sometimes in what they actually reveal or not reveal. Give me a moment. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. Can you see? I see a plane entering a building and an explosion, and that's exactly what I expect to see with a plane full of gas entering a building. An explosion. I have seen nothing abnormal, weird. It all makes sense to me. I was there, by the way, when World Trade Center 7 came down. I was about a block and a half away from World Trade Center 7. And people like to say, well, you know, that building should not have come down. There was no reason for it to come down, and it had to be detonated. It was detonated. There was an explosion, and I know that's wrong. I know it from my own ears. World Trade Center 7, when it came down, it wasn't like, boom, and then it collapsed. It was like, it was like that. It was a slow build, a roar, and that's what happens when it comes collapsing down. A detonation, you would hear an explosion. But when it collapses from the top, you would not hear boom, boom, boom. It would be a slow roar, and that is what I heard. It's interesting, the 9/11 Commission, they never interviewed me about that, but I was right there. I was right there. I couldn't see World Trade Center 7 because there was so much smoke and debris that I was inhaling, by the way. I was at church in Cortland at about whenever the hell that thing came down. What was that, 5 o'clock at night, 4:30, something like that? I need to register for one of those funds. I inhaled so much stuff down there. I was there on 9/11, then I went back the next day. You know, my parents lived in Battery Park City, and just on the other side. I went to that. That was my neighborhood. I knew that neighborhood like the back of my hand. I knew that place so well. And never the same, never the same. It is hard to believe, though, that I can walk in that vicinity sometimes and not think about 9/11. I'm surprised. I can drive by there and just think that I'm on my way to pick up something or to see somebody. Or I never knew it would happen, but it has happened. Just like I never knew we'd come to the day where 9/11 would not be on the front page of the New York Times. It took about almost 10 years, but we got to the day where it was no longer on the front page of the New York Times. Now nobody even looks at the front page of the New York Times. The New York Times, I don't even look at the website anymore. What a bunch of crap. However, they got a nice new feature about how people make ends meet in New York. And it's pretty cool. Everybody from a museum security guard to a woman who owns a daycare to a university professor. How New Yorkers make ends meet in New York. Pretty well done. I'll give that to the Times. First time I read an article from top to bottom in about 20 years. Well done. Be right back. Have buried their children with this war and the dignified transfer. 3 casualties coming back to America from overseas. And that's got to be incredibly tough. Very, very tough. What can you say? What can you do? Flag-draped coffins. Our country, I like to believe, takes care of the fallen families. And thank God we have organizations like Tunnel to Towers. And I know the government actually does show a lot of class, actually. You know, They have the in-person next of kin notification. You know, I think that's really. They've made movies about this. Taking chance, that officer who goes with his fallen friend from Afghanistan all the way home. They fly, they escort the body all the way back, and those coffins coming off. And if you're the president, you know it's your decisions that led to these deaths. There are very few people in the world who can relate to what he's going through. And of course, it's much worse for the parents and the brothers and the sisters and the sons and daughters and everybody. It does happen in warfare, though, and it always will. It always will. There's where do we get such men and women? Where do we get such one happens to be from Ozone Park. We'll have more on her in a little bit. So it looks like we're about to start bombing even harder than we were. I hope Iran gets the message. I'm a little bit, wow, we're going to be bombing the homes of military leaders over there. That's what I'm hearing. We're going to actually bomb the homes of military leaders. I hope we get them on their way to work. I don't want any kids. I don't want any spouses, okay? I don't want them killed. I only want the combatants. All right? I'm sure we have a plan to take care of that. You know, when we hit Iraq in the run-up, we bent over backwards to not hit women and children, even the women and children around Saddam Hussein. I'm not talking about Uday and Qusay. Those guys were totally bizarre. Do me a favor. I want you to there are people raising genuine questions about the election of 2020. We're still allowed to do that. There are documents all over the place. I've examined them. They're very, very incriminating for those in the FBI and the CIA who tried to say that, no, the election was free and fair and unmolested. Nah, there are serious problems. It looks like China was bending over backwards to help get Joe Biden elected. What came of that? Here's one of my favorites. She's from Lindell TV, and she tracks down this Democrat bomb thrower. Houlihan is her name. Houlihan. Tom Houlihan from the Houlihan clan. Go ahead and hit that, please. Let's see, if you don't mind. It is cut 19.
Hi, Congresswoman. Allison Steinberg with Lindell TV. Last time I spoke to you, it was right before Trump's announcement on election interference. You said there was nothing to see, but it's now come out that there was over 280,000 non-citizens on the voter rolls. Does that concern you at all? Does that concern you at all?
That's laughable. That's all I'm going to say about that.
These are declassified documents.
That's ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous?
Because it's impossibly wrong and absolutely fake news, and you're irresponsible for reporting those kinds of fake stories to the American people.
Sure. It's not fake. These documents are real. You think they're just made up? They're just fake documents?
Let me tell you this. If you can name my name, I will answer your question. Who am I?
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
All right, what's your question?
My question is, you told me there was nothing to see regarding the election interference announcement.
All of them.
280,000 illegals are on the voter rolls.
Can you point to me one? Can you find me
on
10?
The website?
Can you find me 20? Can you find me 100? Can you find me 1,000? Can you find me anybody? This is All right, then let's meet.
Website.
Let's meet, and
I would be happy to.
We'll find those people
They're
together.
all on the website. It's all.
I spend every day, all day, looking at classified documents. Every day, all day. The president's speech was laughable with its inaccuracies and with its falsehoods. And you're propagating this myth to the American people, which is nothing but destructive to the American way of life. And you should feel embarrassed.
And on that note, if you want to follow up, you can reach her.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Who won that? I think she's a little bit too defensive. Every day, all day, looking at classified documents. No, you don't. Every day, all day, looking at classified documents. Don't flatter yourself. You know what that's called? A humble brag. Oh, classified documents every day, all day. No, you don't. Nobody does. And classified documents are only going to tell you so much. But in this tranche of classified documents, we see within the deep state a raging debate and a raging effort to keep the idea that China wanted President Biden elected instead of President Trump. They want to keep that information away from the president. Congressman Houlihan, as you're looking at these documents every day, all day, I assume you've seen this. I assume you've seen Special Agent Flores in the FBI office in Albany saying that she's running a shadow government to keep this information away from the president. What do you have to say about that? Is that fake news? Is that document somehow manufactured or not real? What's going on there? Why are you so indignant about all of this? Indignant, and you're doing great destruction. How is this destruction? You know it's destruction? Shutting down any and all conversation about this. And if you look around, other than me and a handful of other people in the entire country have actually taken a look at these documents, and man, there's a lot here. There is a lot here. I went through it going back to Thursday, Friday, all weekend. Yesterday, did a huge thing on it. And we need more. We need more information. President Trump is not wrong. There's something suspicious. There's something wild in their resistance to this. Here's Elizabeth Warren, I believe the same reporter from Lindell. Go ahead and hit that one if you don't mind. Carlos, my friend.
Hi, just a quick question for you. I know you're vehemently opposed to the Save America Act, but does the recent revelation in New Jersey with the aliens who are actually registered to vote change your opinion on getting that legislation passed?
Look, it is already illegal for someone who's not an American citizen to vote. Period.
But there's at least 400 aliens that did vote.
There are already laws to prevent that.
Well,
and if people have violated the law, then they should be prosecuted. Easy.
Anything's actually going to happen. I thought Democrats always said that there's no evidence of
I don't understand why you want laws that are already there. That makes no sense.
But I thought Democrats said illegals never vote, but obviously they do, right? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Bye-bye. They run away. Boy, they run away. So where is this going to go? I don't like that anything related to the election is seen as too hot to handle. You just don't go there. You see Fox News, they don't touch it. They don't say anything about it. Now, part of it is, I think it's Rupert Murdoch and his beef with President Trump. It's a billionaire jealousy thing. Is it legal? Is it legal? I don't know. I don't think. I mean, who's going to sue you? Who's going to sue you for raising questions about what was China's role in all of this? Is China going to take you to court? Is some ex-FBI agent going to take you to court? This is still America. We're allowed to ask these kinds of questions. Don't you think? Hey, by the way, when it comes to enforcing our border and citizenship and making sure that illegals are deported, you know who was actually pretty good at that? Barack Obama, baby. Barack Obama. 15 years ago, Barack Obama was under fire from his own party for being too gung-ho when it came to enforcement of our border and of our citizenship requirements and getting illegal alien criminals out of the country. This is pretty wild. Cut 4, if you don't mind. PBS Frontline 2011. Cut 4.
As a candidate, he promised to fix the immigration system.
The system just isn't working, and we need to change it.
As president, Obama cracked hard.
What did he give us? 1 million people been deported.
Frontline, the investigative reporting workshop, and correspondent Maria Hinojosa investigate Obama's tough immigration enforcement.
Hasn't the president ended up enacting the Republican agenda?
What the president is doing is enforcing the law of the land.
Examining his promise to deport hardened criminals.
1,000 murderers, 6,000 sex offenders, 45,000 serious drug violators.
While critics say the program has swept up thousands of immigrants with no criminal record.
A mother who had a broken taillight being separated, maybe forever, from her children.
They don't understand how their mother could have been thrown out of the country.
Wow. That Obama meant business. That's 2011. 2011. And the left was giving Obama a hard time for deporting people, which is, it's all in the rule book, known as the law. How did they make everybody change? How did they do it? It might have been the Central Intelligence Agency. You know, my friend Tony Robbins. I've actually met Tony Robbins before. Great guy. I went to one of his symposiums. I went to one of those, you go and you yell and you jump and scream and, you kind of learn these little techniques. And it worked for a little while. I love Tony. But once I found the Bible, once I found God, I didn't really need Tony as much. But I think he's a force for good. He wrote a book called Awaken the Giant Within. And I noticed recently that Gavin Newsom said it's one of his favorite books. And in his book, Gavin Newsom, he talks about Tony Robbins, and he totally botches what Tony Robbins is all about. Totally screws it up. Doesn't understand Tony, doesn't understand anything, he doesn't even understand the definition of basic words. He misuses words. He makes all kinds of weirdo mistakes. That's the thing about Gavin Newsom. His brand is having dyslexia. I have dyslexia. Now, why does he brag about that? Because somehow that gives him sympathy and the idea that he overcame adversity. Like, for him and having dyslexia, there's all this massive political upside. It's like Joe Biden with that stutter. Ooh, wow. Look at what he overcame and look at what he is now. Well, Joe Biden never had a stutter, by the way. That's fake. That is totally fake. They made it up. I know the guy who made it up. I know when they made it up in 1987 to make Joe appear more interesting. Because he's a really white bread, bland guy, actually. Very greedy, but white bread and bland. So if you have dyslexia and you're a politician, wow, isn't that great? I have dyslexia. Well, it's also a reading disorder. And when you have a reading disorder and you're the governor, or God forbid you're the president, we can't have that. You can't have a guy who doesn't understand the definition of basic words, who doesn't understand the point that he's actually writing, that he's actually making himself. He's drawing the wrong conclusions from the evidence that he writes. It's an amazing book. I'm still working on my review. But I decided, because he botched it so bad, I wanted to make sure I understood what Tony was all about. And I found myself reading the Tony book. And Tony writes something fascinating in there, and I didn't know this about him. He worked with the Army and the Pentagon and the Central Intelligence Agency. Listen to this. My work was so successful, this is Tony Robbins, that I also went through top secret clearance and had a chance to model one of the top officials in the CIA, a man who'd worked his way up from the bottom of the organization. Let me tell you that the skills that he and others like him have developed for shaking another person's convictions and changing their beliefs are absolutely astounding. They create an environment that causes people to doubt what they've always believed, and then give them new ideas and experiences to support the adoption of new beliefs. Watching the speed at which they can change someone's belief is almost scary, yet it's powerfully fascinating. I've learned to use these techniques on myself, blah, 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 blah. The part about the CIA being able to change beliefs and stuff like that, I want to know, how did we get Drag Time Story Hour for children? How did we get millions of people to believe that they're transgender, that their children are transgender, and other people to believe that if children want transgender, their parents shouldn't know, and they should get radical, life-altering, body-altering, surgical mutilation to their genitals? I don't think that just happens, and I don't think that just happens because LGBTQ groups start pushing it. It's deeper than that. And I'm talking deep state, deeper than that. Be right back. 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. You know, Carlos, this Sunny Hostin. I never really pay any attention to Sunny Hostin. What difference does Sunny Hostin make? I couldn't even figure out her name. I just said the one with the stringy hair who seemed to resent everybody else on that show, The View. Nobody watches The View. Nobody cares about The View. I mean, I literally have a policy. I'll only talk about The View. Well, I'm violating my policy. I hardly ever talk about it, all right? I'm serious. Like Greg Gutfeld, who I love, half of that show is about, oh, my gosh, they said something stupid on The View. Who cares? This is a free country. You're allowed to say stupid things. But Sunny Hostin, you may remember, you saw the other day, you know, she's rich, and she's always talking about her black son and her black son being profiled. Well, her black son was arrested for hanging around the train tracks. I can tell you, you're not allowed to hang around the train tracks. I learned that when I was 7 years old. We were putting pennies on the train tracks, and the cops chased us away. If you went for a jog on the train tracks, you're going to get busted. And Sunny Hostin came down there and kind of threw her fame around and got the son off, or you know, just was kind of using her privilege. Anyway, it turns out that she was a slave. Her ancestors owned slaves. Did you know that? Yeah, her ancestors owned slaves. That guy, that professor from Harvard, figured it all out. Now, she said recently that she's deserved reparations because she's black and the descendant of slaves. No? Thank you, Professor Gates. She is the descendant of slave owners. So she's got to pay the descendants of slaves. All right? So she was a slave owner, her family was. All right. Well, I got to be honest. I don't know what the hell to make about the Iran situation at this point. Excuse me. It looks like we're bombing, but some ships are getting through the Strait of Hormuz. The blockade may be back on, but I'm hearing about a deal any moment now. What the hell is going on? The one who knows, who's been able to see through all of this from the very beginning, General Blaine Holt, U.S. Air Force retired. Welcome back, the master strategist. We're so grateful to you. You know what I mean by a little bit of confusion on my part, maybe not your part. Maybe everybody's got this war figured out but me, but I don't know what's going on. How are you, sir?
Oh, great. It's good to be with you. Welcome to the fog of war. And it's quite intentionally induced. And as we watch, and I'm watching ships go through the straits, so the Iranians can say whatever they want. But shipping's moving through, not at full throttle, but we're getting ships through, and that's very important. But okay, there's a peace deal coming anytime we're going to talk. Well, what could they possibly say that's going to suddenly instill the president's confidence and trust in any deal they would embark on? But whether they want a 10-day ceasefire to have a talk about this thing, or whether we don't give them that, the net result will be the exact same place. There is going to be a regime change. It won't be executed in its final iteration by us, but by the Iranian people. We're decrementing the IRGC's combat capability in real terms right now, taking away infrastructure, taking away basing, taking away their ability to communicate. And there's organized guerrilla groups in 3 zones of the country right now that are getting ready to, when we tell them we believe the IRGC is weakened enough, go get on it. It's your country. Take it back. And that will probably take longer. And it will tick off so many people, because why won't we put boots on the ground? It's like we learned our lesson in Iraq and Afghanistan. The president's on a really good path here. And people can get frustrated. But look, the right things are happening.
All right, well, let's talk about boots on the ground, because I'm like getting into I'm working myself into a space where, hey, maybe we're going to have to put some boots on the ground. You know, look, everybody's shooting their mouths off about this war at all times, and sure. Clark Island and Pickaxe Mountain, whatever, and it's going to take boots on the ground. Now, and even, General Kane yesterday seemed to say that, yeah, you can only do so much with air power. What was that all about? Go ahead.
That's an Army line that has been used since the Army has been an Army. I think before Wilbur and Orville were around, they were like, you're not going to get it done with air power. We're not bringing an occupation force Kellogg, Brown and Root contracts and Dynacore contracts for infinitum for 20 years. We know where that goes. So this is what we are doing is we're using judiciously American air and naval power to set the conditions to open up the straits once and for all, to end this regime that were put in 1979, no less than Western intelligence agencies. Thank you, France. And we're ending that. And this 47-year scourge of Armageddon psychopaths that want to bring about the end with nuclear weapons, and they mean it, well, your grandkids won't have to worry about that. So, no, it's not going to be an all-out war. Carg Island, do we put Marines down? Yes, if they threaten the oil, we will have to do that. Are there instances where we might be putting a force down on Pickaxe Mountain? Not unless the new Iranian government has taken over and welcomes us in a very peaceful way, and we get to not just take out nuclear centrifuges and that stuff, but I'm guessing that the whole thing is a crime scene, and there's evidence all over that place about deals that people here in the United States would wish there was no evidence of.
Wow. All right. Well, all right. Kane is an Air Force general. So why would he say that? Why would he say that Army line that, that you can only do so much with air power? I mean, yeah, I've heard that before. It's kind of an unofficial maxim. What is this, a little bit of psyops on his part? What is that?
Well, okay. I thought you meant General Keane, the Army guy over at Fox. So in the case of Dan Kane, as an airman,
he said it to Senator Kennedy.
That's fine. What he's delineating is this is the level of our commitment. We are going to do this with air and sea power. Will we have boots on the ground? Like I said, with some limited ways. So who are the boots on the ground? He's correct. You cannot win the war without boots on the ground, but those boots are Iranian boots. If you want your country, you're going to go get it. Otherwise, we're going to have you in chaos because there will be no government. These are disingenuous, crazy people. So what I think Kane is really intoning is that there will be a baton pass to the Iranian people. Now, I could be wrong. Absolutely, I could be wrong. If you see us change up the entire script and here comes the Big Red One and the 4th Infantry Divisions, then you'll hear me stand up loudly more than almost anybody else saying, don't do it this way.
Wow. Okay. So it's going to be the Iranian regime change. They're going to have to do it. You said 3 sectors. This is real. This isn't like, Paul Wolfowitz and it looks great on a PowerPoint. I mean, this is real stuff.
What did Wolfowitz do? He fired the entire Ba'ath Party, sent the country into complete chaos, and created sectarian violence, which would be the seed corn to build ISIS. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is, are they getting supplies? You betcha. Are they getting intelligence from us? You betcha. So are we in the Northeast, the Southwest, and the Southeast? There are guerrilla groups that have had time, thank you, MOU, to train. And then what a beautiful thing Pickaxe Mountain is. So you remember the Freedom Doritos, those B-2s 2 Junes ago that nailed the other nuclear facilities. Why did we leave Pickaxe Mountain alone? Oh, my. I'll tell you why. Because once they went to go rescue all their nuclear equipment and crap out, they had to have some place to put it. We decided where they were going to put it. No problem. We left them a secure facility. Thank you for putting it all at Pickaxe Mountain. We'll go take care of that now.
Okay. Wow. Okay, man. This is great. Now, Pickaxe Mountain, meaning we're going to destroy it or we're going to keep an eye on it?
Well, we might put a couple of heaters into the front doors. I think it's pretty formidable facility, but what we're going to do in all cases is deny them the use of anything that could put them back on a track to start a nuclear enterprise. We have done that with scientist removal. Thank you, Israel. We have done that by slamming shut the doors to these underground facilities that, have been heavily damaged. Whatever they rescued from the program is in Pickaxe. Looks like a juicy target to me. And while we can't obliterate Pickaxe Mountain, we certainly, like I said, can put some crowd pleasers through the front doors of that place and make a real impact.
Crowd pleasers. I love it. Hey, did you catch what he said about a B-2 bomber? He called it a freedom Dorito. Is that what you said? Is that what you fly? You fly boys crack me up. Is that what you said?
Yes, and listen, my C-17, I call that the Millennium Falcon.
The Freedom Dorito. No, it's shaped like a Dorito, and it makes sense. All right, so, okay, a couple more quick things here. Regime change. Look, it seems like that's a dirty word or a dirty phrase, just like boots on the ground. We are not good at regime change. That's our reputation, but now we're going about it. That makes certain people nervous, understandably, right?
Well, yeah, but let's look at the differences here. We're not using our clandestine services to foment a color revolution, so no Maidan revolution here. We have given the existing regime many, many off-ramps to save themselves and to remain in control of the country. They have passed up on all of those things. We are not saying that we're going to take care of this regime change soup to nuts. We're telling the Iranian people, this is your chance. How do you like not having food, water, and a currency? Well, there's Tehran. Go get on it. Where do you want the bomb? 30 minutes or it's free. You want a bomb someplace? We'll put it there. But you'll have to take back your country.
Okay, that's interesting. So the problem with our previous regime change things is we were kind of encouraging them, giving them a motivation, like, hey, here's why you should overthrow the government. No, really, you should. It's going to be in your best interest. These people already know that. And now all we got to do is kind of give them a little bit of not even a nudge, a little bit of some tools or a little bit of, shaping up the battlefield there a little bit, right? I think I get it. That's the big difference, right?
That is, and there's another thing in play here. We're not doing this with USAID pretending to be a charitable organization building wells and schools for kids. Those things were the seed corn to those color revolutions. This is fully transparent. We've given you every chance to reform yourselves. You're not going to do it. You want to be a threat to the world? Fine. We want to introduce you to your 90 million population, and we're going to be very above board about it. You became disingenuous, and so we're not going to help you anymore. And they're screaming bloody murder, saying, no, we can change, said the scorpion in the terrarium after it killed the last insect or whatever it wanted to do. Sorry,
all right.
Over.
I get it. This is fascinating. I want you to listen to Hegseth on Capitol Hill yesterday. You got a flavor of this, but let's go through it. Cut 8, please. Cut 8.
I would take issue with your characterization that we started this war. Iran started this war 47 years ago, and they've killed thousands of Americans, including our brothers on the battlefield in Iraq. Iran has been targeting us for a long time.
Which is true. Was it obliterated or wasn't it? What's the status?
The nuclear sites under Midnight Hammer were obliterated, but Iranians foolishly continued to attempt to pursue nuclear capabilities, which is why we destroyed their defense industrial base and so many of the other capabilities to ensure they can't get to a nuclear weapon. So we're staying laser focused on the objective, and you're trying to make campaign commercials.
No, we're
and
not.
That's fine.
We have political leadership. You don't have a strategy. You don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. The men and women are going to be able to do it, but they need to have leadership. When will you show leadership? When will you show leadership?
Why don't you show some leadership and stand up to your fellow Democrats who won't fund the troops, who stand and play partisan politics while you don't give us the money? You want to stand up here and talk about the troops? You won't show any political courage to actually fund our department because you have Trump derangement syndrome and can't actually commit to anything meaningful. So I put this on you, Senator.
All right. So, when you see the skirmishes, I give advantage Hegseth, but I have a bit of a problem, and I don't want you to drag you into it, but, some of this stuff, he did not have to resort to Trump derangement. These are thoughtful questions, and some of them were thoughtful questions, and they deserved more thoughtful answers. He reverted to, support the troops, defend the troops, our brothers and sisters in arms, that kind of stuff, because he's not good on the specificity stuff. Granted, at times you should not be specific. What did you make of his testimony yesterday? I mean, is he fulfilling the strategic? Is he facilitating the strategic end to all this stuff, or is he just flailing, trying to get through it?
I don't think he's flailing. I certainly appreciate that he aggressively engaged in the debate with them, but the style is not an area where I would coach him to matching energy for energy. In fact, I would do the opposite. What I would I think he'd be more effective. And again, I am very appreciative that the secretary took him on. He should be doing that. Don't use the buzzwords of the day, but what I would appreciate is an opposite energy, almost an ice water in your veins, clinical. This is what we're doing. This is what you have said. You can either pay for the troops or not pay for the troops when they're in harm's way. You've paid more for Ukraine than you have paid for the United States military. You supported a 20-year war that went to a complete nowhere, and yet here you want this done in 5 months. But if he could have done, I think that path, and I'm agreeing with you, is a more effective razor's edge path, a professional path. But I certainly understand his zeal and his passion for wanting to stand out in front of our armed forces. And so I'm not castigating the secretary. It's just I would urge a reconsideration of style.
Hey, that's amazing. You just said we spent more on Ukraine than on this thing? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
What's the total on Ukraine about? What do we...
I think we're north of $300 billion. That's for sure. And again, at whatever way Ukraine ends up, you're going to see me standing on desk going, "Where's the audit? Where's the audit? I want to know about every nickel. I want to know where every single weapon went. I want to know because right now, I'll tell you what, in Ukraine, there is the luxury shipyards. They are backed up for 4 years making 100-meter yachts, and they're all Ukrainian owners. So go ahead and tell me where the money went. I'm not denigrating the Ukraine valor or military trying to pitch a battle against Russia, one of the top 5 superpowers in the world. But go ahead, tell me where all the money went. I just want to know that it was spent as we had intended, because that one congressman who was screaming at Secretary Hegseth, who said, "You don't have a strategy." Fine, cool. Tell me what the strategy is here, Congressman. Tell me what's going on in Europe. It's Europe, and we're dealing with a nuclear power. So just go ahead, lay it out for me.
One more thing before we let you go. I've heard this talk about we're going to start targeting, and I don't know where it came from, and it maybe came from, I don't know, but we're going to start targeting the homes of some of these senior military leaders. And maybe that's fine, maybe that's not so fine. I immediately think, quite frankly, I think about Hegseth and his family. I don't want them targeted. You know what I mean? Is it going to be a tit for tat kind of thing? Where is this coming from that we would go after their homes and target individual military leaders? And is that a legitimate thing to do in warfare?
I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think that's a legitimate target if you're going to take out somebody's home with family members in it. Now, if it's their home and you've caught the leader and you can isolate that the leader is there by themselves, well, that is in play. That's a legitimate military target. But you start putting innocents, and we would assume that their family members around them are innocents. I'm sorry. I would urge reconsideration of that target set.
And where is this talk coming from? I've heard, I don't know where it took off, but I've heard it thrown around a lot on social and elsewhere. Do you know where this came from?
I hope it's not somebody wearing a uniform or somebody who's a senior executive. I just hope it's not coming out of a security professional, because I find that, quite frankly, to be irresponsible. And the reason we have these rules, the reason we engage in these rules, just like we should be engaging in the right POW rules and not waterboarding people, is for this exact reason. We know that when we're taken prisoner, or we don't want our own families at risk when we're serving overseas. So why would we put that into play?
Makes total sense. There are a few people who understand the world, like Blaine Holt, everybody. U.S. Air Force General Blaine Holt, retired master strategist and now entrepreneur. Tell us about that company again, because whatever the hell you're doing, I want a piece of it. A mind like this. What's it called?
We are Xeriant, Xeriant. Xeriant means the pinnacle of technology, the pinnacle of innovation. And what we're incubating right now is the newest, most advanced technology in building products that you could put in your house. Fireproof, waterproof replacement to your wall boards, spackles and tapes. And we've got insulations, nano coatings, and we've gotten our first contracts. They're coming in right now. We're so excited. And then this next thing we want to do is we really want to build science and technology products that protect American sovereignty. So you hear all about these Havana syndrome, microwaves, all these things that could be dangerous to to humans. We want to develop technologies that counter that stuff. We want to protect American rights and American sovereignty at Xeriant.
Wow, Xeriant. All right, check it out. Good stuff. General Blaine Holt, we thank you. To be continued, and we'll be right back.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I feel like I know what the hell is going on in the world thanks to that man. 800-8489-222, 800-8489-222. David in New Jersey, hello.
Thank you, Semper Fi from a squid. It has been over 2 months since I spoke with you last. I really hope you can convey to Congressman candidate wannabe Joe Hathaway why the Second Amendment matters, coupled with yesterday's announcement by communist Shrill and today's announcement by the Trump administration. The idea that the Second Amendment takes second foot by a bunch of spineless, gun-grabbing rhinos, gun grabber Chris Christie included, begs the question how to reciprocate those votes in November from people like me that are probably going to vote third party or may write their own names in. Enough is enough. Hathaway has had plenty of time. He's had plenty of time, and there's nothing on his website. I can put you on speaker and read through why.
Before you do that, I have to say, I haven't heard anything about Hathaway in a while. I mean, I know that he didn't beat that person in that special election, and that he was going to run anyway. For the, I haven't heard anything about him. What's he doing? I mean, is he running right now for sure?
He's on his website for Congress mentions nothing of the Second Amendment.
I know that's your issue. I'm just talking about his campaign overall. I have not heard from his team. I have not. Let me just see what's going on here. There was a lot of traffic in April, and now let me see here. He's got to be doing something. We got to get him back on the show, and we'll ask him those questions. Okay?
No.
What do you mean?
No, it's not okay.
Well, what do you mean it's not okay? What do you want me to do?
Back up the Second Amendment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but it's okay if I ask him questions there, pal, right? Right. I know you meant to say that. We'll be right back. Everybody should feel a hell of a lot smarter after talking to Blaine Holt. Damn, that guy knows the world very, very well. Hey, to the last guy who was talking about Joe Hathaway, a couple of things here. I just kind of had an attitude there at the end. No, that's not okay. I said I'll ask him about it. I haven't heard much about his campaign. I hope he's running hard. I just looked at his name in Google News. Not too many developments. He's up against that radical lunatic. Look, the Second Amendment ain't going away, and the Second Amendment is so important. That's why the Founding Fathers put it right after the First Amendment, okay? Because it's there to protect the First Amendment. It's also there as a check on government power. Ultimately, you need the citizens with weapons so that the government doesn't get too carried away, okay? I used to be a big gun control guy back when I was stupid. Back when I trusted the government, back when I, was naive and a lot of different things. There was a statue at the United Nations, and it's been there for a long time. It's like a 44 caliber gun. You know that thing that Dirty Harry used to shoot in the movies? Being that this is a 44 caliber Smith & Wesson that can blow your head clean off. you got to ask yourself, do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Back in the 90s, back in the 70s, I think calling somebody a punk was a real insult. You know, it was like, there was something about that word that really set people off. It's not as bad anymore. Anyway, 44 caliber gun, picture that thing like a giant version of it in copper, and the barrel of the gun is twisted into a pretzel, twisted into a knot. Like, see, the government doesn't work, the gun doesn't work anymore. Isn't that great? You know, beating their swords into plowshares or plowshares into swords, one or the other, making weapons into non-weapons. Isn't that beautiful? And I used to think that, oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, what could be better than destroying weapons and getting rid of all the weapons so we could have peace, beautiful peace? Well, then I saw it in a totally different way. Might have been during COVID. I don't know. And I figured out the Second Amendment and its importance long before COVID. But I took a look at that statue that I used to admire. Then I realized, you know, it would take force. It would take a hell of a lot of force to turn that barrel into a pretzel, right? It's metal. And not only was it, they turned it into a knot. How do you do that? It takes strength. It takes power. It takes machinery. Well, that machinery is owned by the government. And I don't trust the government. I love our country. I don't trust our government. I love the system of government that we set up under the Constitution. But so much of it is totally out of control and excessive. We need an armed citizenry as a check. And now, also, you got to remember this. You know, there's some districts. You also got to win. You know, you got to win. If Joe Hathaway gets to Congress, he may not be the National Rifle Association's favorite candidate. But he's not going to be a crazy left-wing lunatic either. He's not going to vote for impeachment, for crying out loud. If we could possibly do that, there would be multiple impeachment hearings on President Trump. And every time we have an impeachment, something disastrous happens next. Have you ever noticed this? When we should have been getting ready for the next disaster or working hard to prevent the next disaster, we've been too busy impeaching presidents. Now, Bill Clinton was a total lowlife with that Monica Lewinsky. It was bad news. Never should have done that. Also, back then, before I was enlightened, I'm like, that was his own sexual activity. It's nobody's business. And I could still say that to a point. But he's the president. He should have known it would get out, and it got out. He was the president in 1993, for crying out loud. It wasn't 1963 anymore. No one was going to cover your ass. But there he was, taking liberties, you know. I remember hearing a guy named, what the hell's that guy? Robert Reich, Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton. He was like, I can't believe the president would do something like that. Something so small. Why would he risk everything for something so small? And I remember hearing that and repeating it because it sounded smart. And I think it might have been, I don't know who it was, but it was a very wise person who said, small? Why do you think these guys get into politics? For that very reason. For the girls. For the power and the perks. Not small. It's half the reason why he's in it. It's half the reason why most of these people go to Congress, so they can be somebody, so they can get chicks. Can you believe that? But it's true. It takes a certain type of person. Now, there are some really good ones in the mix, really good ones. Mike Johnson's really good. Hey, I think Joe Hathaway would be great, even if he isn't perfect on guns. You got to get elected. I learned that from President Trump, you know. He was kind of telling people to cool it a little bit on right to life. Hey, I got you these justices, but, you know, you got to get elected. You got to be real at the same time. You can be idealistic, but you got to keep it real. All right, so there we are on that. The other matter at hand, we got that war brewing. He also told me about regime change. We've never done regime change, but this is different because we're not giving them the idea. They already want regime change in Iran. They want it. They were in revolt in January before we started dropping the bombs, right? Right. So, you You want to hear Sunny Hostin? All right, this is the once every 6 months I care about what they say on The View. And here's the first part where, quite frankly, she's like, more than a few people of color I know who happen to have, let's say they're white collar, right? They throw down the race card pretty hard, and it shuts up a lot of people at the table. And then she does that at The View, and then she finds out from Professor Gates that she's actually the descendant of slave owners. All right, Sunny Hostin, go ahead, Carlos.
And so what this is about is money, Joy.
Yeah.
This is not about anything else. It's about this country trying to avoid paying African Americans our due.
Well, and also,
wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living.
Kind of blows her worldview wide open, though, right? We have to get our due, she said. Our due. The race card. It used to work very, very well. We're having a bit of an adjustment. Did anybody see those hearings yesterday with the Smithsonian quote unquote intellects? What a bunch of foolish people. I did a little bit of this last night and even yesterday. Brandon Gill, who will be president of the United States. What do we say? When is he going to be president? 2036, 2040, something like that. He's only 30 years old. He's not even old enough at this point to be president, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. These people are embarrassing. Gosh, the Smithsonian Museum, how can you screw it up? We got the coolest things you could put on exhibit. We got Skylab. We've got moon rocks. And then they wokeify everything. So here we go. Brandon Gill putting it to Director Hartig is her name. Typical whack job from the left, but she's got real power. A museum that we pay billions of dollars to run. Billions of dollars to run a museum. Hanging a bunch of pictures. Cut 9.
Director Hartig, thank you for being here. Would you say that the goal of history, even if it's not properly carried out, would you say that the goal of history is to be objective?
Thank you, sir, for the question. I think that there are many goals of history, and certainly as you collect, as we do, examine evidence, create scholarship.
Is objectivity one of the goals of history?
We strive to be objective and nonpartisan and not based on any ideology.
So it's one of the goals. Doesn't that seem a little bit concerning? It certainly does to me, because as part of this white supremacy document that your organization has promoted, objectivity is a core and defining aspect of white supremacy culture. Do you think that it's the goal of the Smithsonian Institution to promote white supremacy culture?
Sir, do you mind sharing with me which document?
It's white supremacy culture right here. This is part of the mass action toolkit that your organization has promoted for several years now under your leadership.
I love that part. That's my favorite part. Things that make you go, Keep going, Carlos.
Are you promoting a white supremacy culture at the Smithsonian?
Am I promoting a white?
Ma'am, is this a difficult question?
No, sir. I'm just thinking about the mass action toolkit. We didn't develop it. But back to your question, no, we're not promoting any ideology.
Does it concern you that your goal is objectivity, one of your goals is objectivity, and your mass action toolkit references objectivity as a defining characteristic of white supremacy culture?
It's not our toolkit.
It is your toolkit. You've been promoting it for quite some time.
Toolkit, sir.
But you've been promoting it.
It is used as a reference, I believe, probably in 2019, 2020.
Yes, under your leadership, it has been used as a reference. Is Mickey Mouse racist?
Oh, there's this whole school of thought about poor Mickey Mouse, who's really the least charismatic of the characters, if you think about it, right? I like Donald Duck. He always has something to say. I like Goofy. I like, I guess that's pretty much it. Pluto, the dog. Keep going.
Is Mickey Mouse racist?
Mickey Mouse is not racist.
It's not racist. According to the Smithsonian Institution, one of your exhibits referenced Mickey Mouse as representing, quote, vestiges of longstanding traditions of blackface minstrelsy. Would you describe that as racist?
No, the historical trajectory of the origins of Mickey Mouse tie directly
so Mickey Mouse is rooted in racism. Is that your testimony?
No, sir, it's rooted in minstrelsy.
Minstrelsy, and you don't think the blackface minstrelsy is racist?
It had certain obvious racial overtones that have been well documented.
You think that that's problematic, that Mickey Mouse also has those racial overtones?
It's not for me to determine what's problematic. It's determined to me what's accurate.
Is that right?
Ooh. Hey, you go, girl. What's accurate? Is that right? I think we got one more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Is it important to be polite?
Excuse me, sir?
Is it important to be polite?
Yes, sir.
It's also interesting because the same mass action toolkit that your organization has been promoting references politeness as a defining characteristic of white supremacy culture. Ma'am, are you a white supremacist?
No, sir.
No, sir. Well, that's a cell phone, right? No, sir. Polite. Problem. All right. Announcement from President Trump on Truth Social. This is important. From this point forward, anytime the Islamic Republic of Iran shoots at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, whether it be by missile, rocket, drone, or any other device or weapon, the United States will bomb and destroy one bridge or power plant, including those located next to or in the capital city of Tehran. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Trump. Wow. All right. Now, that's something I think we can make good on. This is going to, right? Please don't push us. All right? Don't push us. At the same time, I think this is going to be wrapped up. I think it's going to be wrapped up. I don't know. And at the same time, it's not that big a deal. This is in check. We can handle it. I'm sorry about the loss of life, but we've spent a hell of a lot more money in Ukraine, right? A hell of a lot more money. And Congress signed up for 2 back-to-back forever wars. This ain't no forever war. Sorry, Brit Hume. Be right back. All right, we're back. We'll do 2 phone calls if we have time. Let's see. Jay is in Whitestone, New York. Hello, Jay. Joe, make it Joe. Joe, Whitestone. Yeah, hey. Sorry.
How you doing, Greg?
Jay's next. What's up?
You mentioned yesterday on TV that you want to go to check out the Smithsonian in Washington, but I know you're a airplane guy. You got to check out their facility that they have at Dulles Airport. You know about it?
Oh yeah, I've been there. It's been a while, but they got the space shuttle there. They got the Enola Gay there. It's amazing.
So you know about it then. Okay. Hey, could you pass something on to Sid for me? Because he doesn't take calls. I got a good name for Sydney, the Bald Eagle.
That's cute. Come on. You can do better than that. Thanks, Joe. Jay, how are you? You're in Bayonne. Yes, sir.
Hey, Greg, you mentioned Patty Murray earlier, and I just wanted to point out that she's no moderate. She supports abortion up until the moment of birth. She, on immigration, she was completely horrible throughout the years, voting to give mass amnesty multiple times. She, on the political hostages of the January 6th, she was completely
Look, she stinks. I understand that. She stinks. I said on one issue, and I can't even remember, she had a smidgen of integrity. You know what I mean? Like, look, I'm looking for some decency in people, and you remind me about all the horror show positions she had. You're right. When you're right, you're right. It's unfortunate how they all went over the cliff. Hell, I remember Chuck Schumer when he had some decent ideas, and he was a decent man. Decent. And then they just went, I don't know, terminally insane. Or maybe they never were decent. They just were doing whatever they did to keep power. And what do they have to do to keep power? What do they have to do to keep power back then, Jay?
Well, back then, the Democrat voter base wasn't as sick as they are now. But you make a good point, because we're so desperate to find decent Democrats that we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with Patty Murray and people like her, because there are no moderates, there are no decent Democrats. And I think that's the thing with John Fetterman. People are so desperate for a good Democrat, they'll ignore every loony position he ever took just to have themselves one normal Democrat. I think it's futile.
You're right about that. And also, hey, it feels good. Oh, look at me. I'm being friendly and nice to a Democrat. You're right, Jay. I have to hear some of these 9/11 families out very, very upset, troubled by this civilian, peaceful peace nuclear deal about to be hammered out with Saudi Arabia. I totally understand where they're coming from. Saudi Arabia, it's interesting. Ronald Reagan, when he became president, one of the first things he did was sell Saudi Arabia a very advanced plane. It was called the AWACS jet. What do they call it? Airborne Warning and Control System, AWACS. Very sophisticated, some of our most significant technology on board. Granted, we have, what do they call them, export versions of these things, that we take out some of the good stuff. We don't give them everything, but they gave them a lot, and Reagan had to get that approved by Congress, and he ultimately did. He got it approved, but he got it by the skin of his teeth. And I kind of was impressed, and I always was a little bit confounded by those guys. This is right after the OPEC crisis, and why was he so intent on giving Saudi Arabia, which, it's a little bit different over there, right? They chop off people's heads. I think you get adultery, they'll chop off your head. But as we have here, the Times, the Trump administration plans to announce that it has reached a broad nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia that could lead to the country enriching its own fuel for nuclear reactors. The accord is intended to further bind the United States with the Saudi government as the war with Iran strains the relationship. The Trump administration, according to officials, estimates it will provide billions of dollars for the U.S. nuclear industry, starting with Westinghouse, which designs many of the reactors sold abroad. The Trump administration plans to formally sign and announce the agreement with the Saudis. Let's see here. It would be announcing the details to Congress. The agreement likely would have support among many Republicans. Some U.S. lawmakers from both parties have expressed reservations. Israeli officials do not like it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters in Manila that he had nothing to say about any nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia, but he will once it comes out. The accord has been under discussion for years, and during the Biden administration, it was actually envisioned as part of a broader deal that would include Saudi diplomatic recognition of Israel. But after the October 7th attacks on Israel by Hamas, the prospect kind of dropped away. President Trump separated the proposal for U.S.-Saudi civilian nuclear cooperation from any demand that Saudi Arabia recognize Israel. Wait a second. Let me see if I got this right. President Trump separated the proposal for U.S.-Saudi civilian nuclear cooperation from any demand that Saudi Arabia recognize Israel. I don't like that. The agreement will require review by Congress, which under the Atomic Energy Act has the power to vote a resolution of disapproval. Well, look, I think we need the friends. Mr. Trump and the Prince Mohammed agreed to proceed with the U.S.-Saudi civilian nuclear partnership during a visit. And now we have all these unresolved issues about 9/11. And have they been resolved? I don't know. I'm going to bring in one of the great spokesmen for the 9/11 families, and he's been touched by this. Let me see if I can get him to weigh in. And I want him to take me through this. I've talked to him before. He's got reservations, as he should, about Saudi Arabia. How do you feel about Saudi Arabia? Why are we that reliant on Saudi Arabia for anything now? We are self-reliant on oil, right? We have all the oil. We're self-sufficient when it comes to oil, right? I keep hearing that. What does that mean? Why do we have to bother with the Saudis anymore? Well, must be an expert out there who can answer that question for me. Right now, I'm a little bit confused. What do they know about 9/11 that they have not shared with the 9/11 families or our own law enforcement? We're going to get the answers to those questions. All right. Brett Eagleson will be joining me shortly. He lost his dad on 9/11, and he's a great man. And we're going to put him on the phone here. Let me just actually reach out to him for a second. His name is. Call. Thank you very much. I just put the message out there. The phones are amazing. The phones are amazing and also heartbreaking. I woke up this morning, grabbed my phone, and I watched a 5-minute movie clip. I wanted to check the weather, and there was a 5-minute clip about some fascinating movie. I all day long, I'm thinking about this movie. A woman is about to make love to her husband, and then the husband hears a weird sound from the garage, goes to the garage, and the car has just been in a major accident. She lies and said, I hit a deer. Turns out she hit a guy. The guy tries to kill him, and he kills that guy, and he's able to do it because he's a butcher. And then the wife says, look, I hit this guy and I was scared. I didn't want to call the police. And now we got to clean up the body. And he does it. They clean up the body. They chop him up at the butcher shop. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And then the police come by the butcher shop. So we're all worried that he's going to get caught because we're rooting for the bad guys somehow. That works that way. Very strange, don't you think? And then what happened is it turns out that the guy they killed was a mobster. And then the mob comes looking. And then I am enthralled by this. And they tell me this entire story in 5 minutes. And it's like, man, how is this? I don't know when they started doing the movie clips, but that's a problem. It hooks you, and it's very, very hard to shake. You've ever noticed that, Carlos? Very, very hard to shake. Now, one thing that's happening, President Trump cannot shake the popularity and love of MAGA. Despite all of this hate, he is still immensely, immensely popular with Republicans and MAGA. No incumbent has this kind of support from his own party. Even CNN has to admit it. Carlos, hit it, please.
Trump is still very popular with Republicans. Just take a look here. Okay, 21st century own party approval rating, about at this point in the second term. We got Trump, we got Obama, we got Bush. Look, they're all fairly popular, but the one who is the most popular, and we have seen this time in and time out, no matter when you look, is Donald John Trump. He's the only one who's over 80%. 83% of Republicans still approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing as president. He still has that magic touch. We'll see if it carries over to South Carolina, but we've seen it in primaries this year, Senate primaries, and that is because he is still a very popular man, historically popular when it comes to his own party liking and approving of the job that he's doing. Trump is still very popular with Republicans. Just take a look here. Okay.
That's good. That's good. That's great, actually. That's fantastic. And I'm going to break down those numbers a little bit more. How is it that he's so popular with all this negative stuff coming at him constantly? It's never ending. How does he bounce back? How does he fight the fake news? How do you cut through all of that stuff? Well, as I break down this poll here, let's see what we got. President's poll numbers. This is from, it looks to me, is this Doug Schertz? 95% with Republicans, 50% overall. 50% overall. Let me see if I can cut down these matrix a little bit. No, can't go any further, but that is very impressive with all he's up against. Imagine if he had fair media coverage. Okay, he's with us. Brett Eagleson. Are you there, sir?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Brett Eagleson, an amazing man. You've talked to us before. I believe your father was lost on 9/11. And if you could first tell us a little bit about him, and then I want to open this conversation about the Saudi nuclear deal, and I know you have thoughts on that. So, Brett, thank you for being with us.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate you guys having me on and continue to talk about such an important subject, especially, we always like to remind America that this September will mark the 25th anniversary of those horrific attacks. So it's very timely that we're talking about it. My dad is a role model to me. He's a hero. He died that day. He stayed behind. He was only on the 17th floor of the South Tower. He was helping coordinate the evacuation efforts, and he was going on his way up to the 17th floor to grab portable two-way walkie-talkie radios to give to the FDNY, who was having a really hard time communicating, and he was going to clear the floor to make sure that there's nobody stuck there, and that's when the building fell on him. So we do all this advocacy in his honor, and in all of the victims, there's thousands of stories just like that. So our whole point is that we want the truth to come out. We think that there is still accountability to be had. There's still transparency to be had. Everything that we've uncovered and investigated has pointed to the fact that the U.S. government for 25 years, and this is not finger pointing at any specific administration, but for 25 years, the truth has been kept under lock and key. It started with Bush 1, perpetuated by Obama, right up to present day, that the Saudi government was in many ways behind the support that those hijackers received, and we ought to get accountability from Saudi Arabia before any deal is had.
Okay, real quick, what was your father's name?
Bruce
How old
Eagleson.
How old is he when he died?
He was 53.
How old were you when he died?
15.
And what did he do for a living? What was he doing at the World Trade Center?
He worked for a company called Westfield. Westfield owns and operates malls all over the world. They're no longer. They consolidate. They sold to a bigger company. He was a vice president for them. All of the malls on the East Coast were under his kind of portfolio. We live in Connecticut. He was commuting into New York City on a weekly basis. It was a temporary assignment. He was only supposed to have the job down there at the World Trade Center for 6 months because Westfield and Silverstein had recently leased the World Trade Center complex. So if folks don't know this, the World Trade Center site is owned by the Port Authority. So the Port Authority owns the dirt, and the Port Authority entered recently in 2001, they entered into a 99-year lease with Silverstein and Westfield. Westfield was going to redevelop the mall that's currently that was in the subterranean space. So in Fulton Station, surrounding it was this dilapidated mall that was like dimly lit. It was leaking. Westfield said, "Oh, this looks like a diamond in the rough. We want to make this our flagship of the East Coast." And they put my dad on that job sort of temporarily to run the renovation process and get that space up to what it is currently present day.
Yeah, no, Westfield is still was kind of there.
And they're still, they still keep the name branding and the recognition. Like if you go down to the World Trade Center site now, it's still the Westfield Oculus and the Westfield Mall. Yep.
Brett, let's talk about Saudi Arabia. It's a little bit complex. Look, I know President. Well, what you say accountable? What do they have, and what did they do? And when we say they, who do we mean in Saudi Arabia? You know, America's a big country. Yeah, we've got people in our government who hate America. We got people in our government who love America. We got a deep state. I would imagine that there are factions inside Saudi Arabia as well. So, like, who are we talking about in Saudi Arabia, and what did they do that's wrong?
Greg, that's a fair point, and that's a point that I often try to make. It's, we are not looking to alienate an ally in the Middle East. We are not calling for war against Saudi Arabia. We are not saying that Saudi Arabia isn't a strategic partner. What we are saying is that everything that we've uncovered, there were elements within the Saudi government that supported these hijackers. And without that help, 9/11 would have had a 0% chance of success. And those aren't my words. A federal judge has reviewed the evidence and has said the same thing. And we want the record to be written that Saudi Arabia, the elements within that government, were responsible. And it's a complex issue, far too complex to get into over, a 5-minute radio segment. But again, accountability must be had. And if there were elements within the United States government, for example, that caused the mass murder of 3,000 Italians, or elements within the U.S. government that caused the mass murder of 3,000 Germans or even Saudis, you better believe our government would have been held accountable. And you better believe that we would have, there were elements and people would have been prosecuted. Omar el-Bayoumi is a Saudi intelligence agent that our own FBI concluded was working with the hijackers. In the days after 9/11, the FBI told Scotland Yard to go raid Omar el-Bayoumi's flat in Birmingham, England. Scotland Yard did it at the FBI's orders. So 10 days after 9/11, the FBI seizes troves of documents which were buried for 25 years. They weren't given to the 9/11 Commission, but they came about through our lawsuit. And in those documents was a videotape of Omar el-Bayoumi hosting the hijackers at his apartment. There was also a videotape of him casing the U.S. Capitol, referring to the plan. He was talking to his brothers, his esteemed brothers. This is the plan, as I referred to. He was filming the U.S. Capitol, talking about the entranceways, the exits, the egresses, saying that the decisions of the West, the demons of the West, make decisions in this building. The Saudi government tried to say that was a tourist video. Now, I don't know you and I go on vacation. I don't talk about the demons of, like I don't know that that's any tourist video talking about the exits, right? So all of this was buried, and that's our point, is that 25 years later, this all ought to come out.
Brett, do me a favor. You mind sticking around through the commercial break? We just got one little thing we got to wrap up. This is all fascinating and is important.
Sure.
Stay with me for just 2 minutes, okay? Thank you, sir. We'll be right back. Fascinating information. Brett Eagleson is with us. He lost his father, Bruce, on 9/11, has very serious questions and concerns about Saudi Arabia. Before we go, Bruce, do me a favor. This intelligence officer you were talking about who was kind of seemed to be hosting these hijackers and making weird videos, is there any sense that he was a rogue intel person for Saudi, or was he like, part of the team, part of the community?
Yeah, in fact, quite the opposite of a rogue element. He was reporting to senior Saudi government officials, those that were controlling the embassy in Washington. There was probably 15 Saudi government agents that we've identified in our lawsuit that all have never answered questions. For whatever reason, this information was kept from the families. It was buried, and none of them, people like Bayoumi, they've never had to stand trial. They've never answered questions. They've never been prosecuted. And, I guess what I want to say, if I could say it to the president, if I could say it to America, is that there are clearly many facets to this story. And the reality is that as long as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia continues to shield and protect co-conspirators like this thug Bayoumi and keep them from facing justice here in the United States, there should be no reason that America rewards them with nuclear capabilities. It's been 25 years. Let's close this chapter, end this nightmare for these families. So we can stop going to Washington, so we can stop pouring our heart out and stop having to fight this fight. Have the Saudi government surrender these individuals. Let's hold them accountable, and let's close this chapter and work together with the Saudi government. To show that you're a trusted ally and you're a good steward of nuclear capabilities, you can't be hiding 9/11 co-conspirators. You can't be fighting us in court. You have to be on our side.
Beautiful. Brett Eagleson, is there a website people can go to for more information?
911justice.org. If people want to help us in our fight for transparency, they can make a donation through there. They could look at the different documents. They can follow along our journey. I think they could follow me on X. I post frequently on that. So, I think by and large the American people are behind us. I know that they are behind us. The true patriots, the people that love this country. They want to see us have closure. They want to see us have justice. They want to see President Trump step in and do the right thing, too. And I think he has a historic opportunity to do that, and I hope he will.
And one other thing, Brett, what do you do for a living?
I am in banking, believe it or not. So I don't want to continue to have to keep fighting this fight. I've got a family. I've got people that want me present, and this is getting tiring. This is interfering with my life and my peace and hundreds and thousands of other family members. So we just want closure, and what better way to do that than to bring us justice on or before the 25th anniversary?
Wow. Well, Brett, you're amazing. Thank you for what you've done. A lot of people don't know this stuff, and it's very, very important. 911justice.org, 911justice.org. Brett Eagleson, I know your dad, Bruce, would be very proud, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And, folks, that's it for the radio. I'll be making videos later, and we'll resume tomorrow. All the best.